as Denise said, she was always the smartest person in the room, but that wasn't necessarily the ingredient for success.
Then I started at Stanley. I started as an engineer, worked my way up through the ranks, went from an individual contributor to a manager, ran a global product line of cutting products, then became president of various businesses. The first time I realized I'm really not that smart, and emotional IQ, it was about 8 years into my career. Stanley was going through a restructuring. And they were bringing in a corporate VP from Xerox at the time to put in a global-wide procurement organization. I was invited to a conference with about this many people, and we were there for a couple days to brainstorm and come up with ideas, how can we save money and leverage our global spend, yada, yada. And I'm in the audience, just like you guys are, and I'm looking around, and I'm really fidgety, and I like to write, and, a little disruptive. But there was this big executive out there, and what I didn't know is he was actually interviewing the whole group, and he was really good at it. And he was saying the obvious things, the most obvious things, about how we're going to approach this. We're going to basically get the facts, analyze it, improve it, and measure. And I'm talking to my boss saying, duh. I mean, that's scientific theory 101. That big guy's up there, that's his big insight, is we're actually going to manage with facts, manage by fact. This is a waste of my time. I mean, I agree with everything he's saying, and my boss is like, yeah. The next day, his name was Fletcher. We had lunch, and he made a point of all the people here to sit next to me. Like, oh, I thought it was just coincidence. After lunch, he asked me to come back to the back room, and then I realized this was planned. He sat me down, and I've used these lines now because I thought it was just so clever. Megan, yesterday I was doing this presentation, and I've got everyone's engagement. I could see things going on, except I couldn't sleep last night. Like, what do you mean you couldn't sleep? He's like, because of you. You were very disruptive. Like, here's the question I have for you. Are you a skeptic, cynic, or critic? Bob or Mr. Fletcher, I'm not any of those things. I'm a supporter. So what do you mean by that? I'm like, well, what you were talking about, and I definitely took notes. I knew exactly what he was saying. What we were talking about was management by fact and how we get to the root and da-da-da. And we already know what the problem is. I've already done the analysis. Well, tell me more. And I had my evidence file, and I showed him, I've been da-da-da-da-da, and he's like blown away that I actually had done my homework. I got promoted the next week to run that group. And he said, I wasn't sure if I was going to fire you today or next week. And my takeaway was the body language, that I really learned at that time about how I showed up. And and even I have that face that sometimes, like, it's my thinking face. But, that he actually saw a diamond in the rough, that he took me to the side and wanted to know more about what I was thinking and why I was reacting the way I was. And I had no idea that I was being that disruptive. Now, I ran into him like 10 years later, and I told him the story. I said, I tell the Fletcher story just about how it made a difference in my career about being cognizant of how I show up. Doesn't matter how smart you are, it's how you get things done. And he said, it's funny you say that because I've been using the same story. I was like, about identifying talent. And that what you see sometimes isn't, the way people are. So to take that extra time to include people and actually get what's going on. So now I break people down into 4 buckets, kind of very quickly, but I do find that I do this. It's skeptic, cynic, critic, and supporter. And a skeptic, I'm a natural skeptic. Show me. I'm going to ask the questions. I hear it. I've heard it before. We've been through these changes. But I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but I need evidence. Cynics, no matter what you do, they're the negative Nellies, and they can become cancerous to an organization of change. So either, make them a skeptic at least, or move them out to another opportunity. Critics just have a better way, and what I try to do is put them in charge. That's great. And supporters, they're your cheerleaders. They're the ones that are going to be your champions. Is support them and get them out in front of people to change. So, for me, that was the big yeah, I'm not as smart. It's not about being book smart. You got to be smart with people.